City of Stevens Point Board of Water and Sewerage Commissioners meeting, recorded May 10, 2021.
Jamie will take care of the roll call as she normally does. And then I need approval of the minutes of the last month's meeting, unless there are corrections or changes.
I'll move to approve. It's Carl.
Second, Nachman.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. On to the water department claims. Any questions there?
This is Carl. I just put a highlight on 55332, the second one there on postage for billing. Have we been doing, have we seen postage like come through like this in the past, or is it just?
I think this one's unique because we used SpectraPrint in town here for this cycle, I think. And normally it's part of what we pay as a total to our printing company, but they did printing and postage separate. Is that about right, Mary? Is that what happened here?
That's 100% correct.
Okay, thank you. I just, I didn't think I saw it before, and I always know that postage would show up under petty cash. And there
Yeah,
is
when we buy postage for random things, that's exactly right. With part of our software conversion, we couldn't get some of the files converted in time to do the usual send the file, they do all the printing, stuffing, and mailing type things. So this was just to cover our postage for something printed here in town.
Okay.
And I will note, Ray has joined us. You can hear us, Ray? Maybe he can't hear us. No. Okay.
And
Right. Any other questions on the water department?
yeah, and I did have a second one on 55347, and it shows up on the other departments as well. Blocks for the bunker.
Yeah.
Is this, are we building something?
We're not preparing for wartime or anything like that. Basically, what's going on here is this is material storage. You know, if you go to some place that has a bunch of different kinds of stone or bark or anything like that, you know, those areas where they take their loader and they push against those big concrete structures to scoop up, and they have everything stored between them. We have a setup like that up in the hill so that we can store some bulk materials up there rather than having to run for it each time. This is one of the things that we had planned for in this calendar year.
Okay. Thank you much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go on to the sewage department claims.
I have none.
All right. No other questions? Stormwater department.
No questions there from me.
All right. I'd entertain a motion to approve all three departments' claims for last month.
Haynes will move approval.
I'll second it. That's Carl.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Joel's going to enlighten us about the new wellhead protection ordinance amendments.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, it's all pretty much spelled out in the single page memo there. There's nothing too overly complicated about it. And Ray, can you hear us yet? Can you give me a wave or something? I'm not sure he can. I was going to say that he's in the past put some time and effort into this same type of thing. But essentially what's going on here is that, like I said right in the memo here, for about 3 years, there's been some meetings taking place that consist of the Groundwater Citizens Advisory Group. They call it GCAC, which is a committee, a subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Committee for the county. And then the Planning and Zoning Committee has met several times over the last many years. And then most recently, the last county board meeting took up action on the county Planning and Zoning Committee's recommendation for the wellhead protection ordinance amendments. Now, I think we, okay, I'm letting Ray in now, I think. Okay, so basically the proposals, when we got, say, halfway through that process, Ray, I'm gonna mute this one because your phone will be open. I think that'll work.
Okay.
What is that noise? Who else is getting that? Okay. Oops. I accidentally muted your phone now, Ray. We're gonna have to go with thumbs up, thumbs down, or something like that. I think you can hit *9 or *6 to unmute. Anyway, back to the wellhead protection. About halfway through that, all of the drinking water providers in the area, along with staff of all the departments involved, including the county department, had a proposal that everybody was on board with. After that proposal was made, it started getting amended by committee and ended up with a product that just doesn't serve the needs of the drinking water suppliers. And so I went to the county board. There were a bunch of people at the county board who agreed with that perspective, and I shared our perspective, and they voted down the Planning and Zoning Committee's proposal for the Wellhead Protection Ordinance amendments. So what you see before you today, I'll go through really quick. Everybody sees my screen?
Yep.
Okay. This green outline and the orange dots are what's currently adopted in our Wellhead Protection Ordinance. This was modified after Well 11 went in back in the 2012 era. It was only amended on the city's ordinances, though, not the county's, which was part of the reason why it needed updating. But it's important to note that when you go back to the 90s when this was first adopted, it was adopted by the county, the city, the villages, and everything all at the same time, same plan. So this is the existing one. And what we're proposing is actually one that was seen through some of those meetings and prepared by the large effort was by the county staff with some input, of course, from all the different water providers, municipal water providers. So what's going on here, and I'll explain real quick, these red lines are taking place of these orange circles. So they're not round anymore, because what basically happened is we're going through a certain distance, and I believe this is a 2-year time of travel or a 1-year time of travel. Let me look here. District A, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is 2-year, yeah, revised 2-year time of travel. And instead of being circular like that, they've been adjusted to include all of any parcel that circle would hit. So you can see here's well 4 and 5. 5's been abandoned, so we'll have to modify this down the road a little bit too. And then the well field out here. So that's the 2-year time of travel. In the previous version, it might have been called cone of depression, that type of thing. And then the orange one is basically what's on the books currently for the county. The city one is a little bigger than this because the county never adopted that for well 11 back when we did. But the proposed change is this lighter yellow line to go out here, if you can see my mouse moving. So in point, it would add this area out here to the north and east of well 11. In Whiting, it would just add this area here. And in Plover, it would just add this area here. And the biggest change there is that this zone A in the red versus the zone B in the yellow. Zone B was a little inconsistent before as to whether it was representing 5-year time of travel or 10-year time of travel. And overall, the zones were far better represented by 10-year time of travel. So to be consistent between the 3 utilities, we looked at 10-year time of travel. So the difference between the dark orange and the light yellow here, that's a proposed change to zone B. And then zone C, as you can see, if I got to get way up here to show you the impact, the existing zone C for the county, and the city didn't have a zone C because it lied so far outside the city, and because we all adopted the same plan, it was fine. Zone C used to go way up here to the northern extent of the county, and we've cut that back to be this lighter blue line here. It extends a little more over here than it used to, but it's far less up here. And then there's some minor changes down in here, really kind of insignificant. And Plover and Whiting are both on board with this same exact approach. Talked to them prior to, of course, putting this together. And then the final page there is the proposed language for Zone C, because like I said, we only had in city ordinances before A and B, and now we're going to adopt Zone C too, because we can enforce city wellhead protection districts outside of the city limits up to 3 miles through extraterritorial review authority. So Zone C language, this is the draft that was put together, and it would just be incorporated into our ordinances following A and B if you guys approve. And to add to that, if this is approved, what I'd be doing is asking planning and zoning to, Plan Commission to also take this up because it's in that set of ordinances. So that's what I've got.
All right, so Joel, bring that new map back up. Very good. Now, this is not part of this agenda item, but this is a perfect time to try to explain more about why the city has this contract that renews every 5 years with the Isaac Walton League. See that large concentration of 4 wells? Actually, I think it's 5. The Isaac Walton land is in that green space right there. And so if that 166 or 68 acres ever got sold, there could be a subdivision there with all kinds of septic tanks. So when that comes up, like it does usually every February, you'll understand why that agreement was put in place probably some 35 years ago. So
Right.
that's just an FYI, since we have this aerial photograph.
Yeah, and I think it is relevant to the discussion because part of what happened to this proposal when it got acted on is that the area between these 2 green areas, if you can see where I am here with my mouse, got taken out of Zone B and Zone C and everything. It got taken out here, it got taken out here, it got taken out here. And even though that may be the literal interpretation we have of direction of groundwater flow and everything, it doesn't do anything to protect our supply if there's any margin of error there, or if, for example, we need to decide a new well near our other wells. So very, very good point.
Anybody have any questions?
This is Carl. I had a question on page 13 of 22 under the intent. And that first paragraph seems to delineate what is, or describe by narrative, what is District C. And am I reading this correctly, that it falls within the 10-year line of travel and ends with the 20-year time of travel, or is that not?
Yeah, so basically what it's saying is that the proposed C, which is the blue shaded area here, starts at this yellow line and goes out.
Correct.
Because the yellow line, or the outer limit of Zone B, is basically a 10-year time of travel. So Zone C starts at that same point and goes out to the 20-year time of travel.
Okay. So the question that I had is looking at that map, and then you see these different gradients there. You're out to 100-year time of travel. So
you're right. So basically, this text, good catch there. This text didn't match with the map. There must have been a different version in there. Zone C in one of the versions that we got proposed that didn't meet our needs very well did come all the way into 20. We're proposing it out here, which is more of a 75-year time of travel. So thank you. This right here should essentially say 75.
Well, 75, because there are some 100-year gradients in there as well.
Yeah. I'll make sure that that's corrected in the final version so that the map and the text match. I must have grabbed the wrong sheet there.
Now, you were saying originally parcels. I was wondering if in fact it might follow at the outer limits of C, that if it doesn't follow existing roads, or is that just?
Yeah, it gets a little looser than simply saying parcels when you get out to C. It is more about large tracts of land, 40 lines, section lines, and stuff like that. So you're right. It's not one owner on this side and the other owner on the other. But to that same extent, we don't split single parcels in half in any of them. So they're all whole. It just so happens that when you're widening down these lines, there usually is something like a road to split that parcel up. Yeah.
Can I make one comment
Sure.
on the permitted and special exceptions? Particularly, I guess, on the permitted, I don't know how it would differ from what's allowed outside of that area. It just looks to me like a free-for-all, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, zone C is definitely a very loose district, right? It's big, it's huge. So yeah, everything that's permitted in A and B is that first one. And then not permitted in A and B, but they're saying our permitted uses, are the other things below that: salt, de-icing, including combinations above ground hydrocarbon tanks and unsewered residential. So
yeah, I don't even know why bother if it's basically everything. I don't know. That's just a comment. You don't have to answer it, but
yeah, well, I think the reason is because you get into these special exceptions, right? So the zone exists to at least make the conversation happen with some uses. So special exceptions, the following uses may be allowed as special exceptions under the groundwater protection C, provided that such are minimum separated. So we're basically saying, you're right, it is in a lot of ways a free-for-all, except when it comes to these things here, having zone C makes a conversation happen about what kind of control measures do we want in place to ensure that that use is not endangering the groundwater resource. So this is really where the teeth of the district comes in. Outside of C, you don't need to have a conversation about groundwater when it comes to these uses. At least not in the context of a groundwater protection ordinance or a wellhead protection ordinance. And again, this is the wellhead protection ordinance for municipal drinking water.
In your correspondence, you said when this was talked about some years ago that was it basically the same thought process that you've outlined here with this area C?
Back when this was adopted in the 90s?
No, when the county decided not to approve it.
So the County Planning and Zoning Committee came up with a proposal that does not look like this. It's much more shrinked in the approach. And then the county board did not approve their recommendation.
So we don't have to get this approved by the county, do we?
No. See, the hope and really the intent in the beginning was that by everybody talking through the County Planning and Zoning Committee, that we would, oh, May might have got kicked out. I have to let her back in here. Oh yeah, I just did. Thank you. Sorry, May. She's coming back on here. May, you back?
I'm back. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I don't know what
Yeah.
happened. Last thing I heard was Ray's joining us, and then I was gone.
Oh, okay. So where was I, Paul? I was talking about, so the intent was that the county, Stevens Point, Whiting, Village of Plover, Amherst, Junction City, that were all involved in this series of meetings the county was facilitating in order to basically come to a conclusion that everybody agreed on and serve the needs of all the municipal drinking water. Because if the county adopted something that everybody agreed on, we'd of course just take that product to our own governing bodies and say, hey, countywide effort, we all got together, we all spent time on this, and we all agreed this is a good ordinance, this is how we want it amended. That didn't happen. So basically, the input of the municipal drinking water suppliers, which is who this is protecting, it's protecting municipal wellheads, didn't agree with the product that came out of the County Planning and Zoning Committee, and the county board themselves didn't agree with what came out of the County Planning and Zoning Committee. So basically, because we as a group didn't agree on everything, I'm bringing this to the city to say, well, since we're not going to adopt the same plan, let's adopt the one that the city wants to regulate, and the one that they can govern through city ordinance, because it's not going to match. And maybe the county will decide to adopt this after we do, and that's fine if they do. But if they don't, we have a 3-mile boundary around the city where we can enforce our ordinance.
So C is really more about what you referenced earlier as having a discussion about the exceptions.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
It is. It's so things just don't happen with zero knowledge whatsoever, to say these are exceptions. If you can engineer away problems, right? So if you have a below grade tank, and it's in a zone that we're managing, we're going to have you have a triple walled tank with interstitial monitoring that alarms audibly and visibly, and we're going to make you do quarterly groundwater monitoring that gets handed in directly to us so we can keep an eye on it, so nothing will get out of control. So yeah, those are the kind of conversations that are compelled to happen by simply having Zone C.
Do you expect any pushback from any governing bodies, whether it be the city council or the county or anything like that?
Well, I mean, perhaps from the county, yeah, because not from the county board themselves, because they didn't go forward with the recommendation that was given to them. And what they could do is draw boundaries 3 miles outside the city and say, here's what we think Zone C should look like. But that's very little of the map in front of you. 3 miles, our extraterritorial boundary comes to a point right about here, a line right between the wells and Plover. And since villages, I believe, also have extraterritorial review authority, they're probably going to adopt the same thing that we are today, or that I hope you approve to go forward to Plan Commission. If we do take it through the commission, the Plan Commission and council, I'm sure that Plover and Whiting will take forward the same map so that we're consistent. And then it's up to the county to take it up for action or not. But we'll know then that if it's adopted into our ordinances, that we can follow our ordinance. It'd be unfortunate that they're not all the same, like if the county doesn't. But again, that's why we have extraterritorial authority.
Any other questions?
This is Carl. One thing that I would always seem to get comments on when exchanging documents back and forth with the UW system is how does this print in black and white? And I noted when we got the package initially, I had trouble with this map that you have on the screen right now, just picking out the different zones, and that I think there may be a better solution with the hatching or the actual delineation of the lines, such that you can follow C. I mean, it's referred to on the color map by the color of the border, but in black and white you can't tell between C and B. And
yeah, so I think what ends up happening is when we actually put this into ordinance language, there's a place in the ordinance that actually has a legal description of it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that once it actually is adopted, we won't need most of these lines. We won't need all this stuff out here. This is to lend to the conversation about why this line is right here. And you can see the 10-year time of travel line on this purple line. And you can see all these others. So all that can go away. The difference between the dark and the light lines can go away. And what we'll be left with is these red outlines, one orange outline, and the blue outline. And we can leave all the shading off of it. And that'll lend itself much better to a black and white map if you need to do it that way. And we can even create, blown up versions of this too.
Yeah. And the other response that I would get had to do with color blindness.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. We will we'll pay special attention to labeling it so that the line that you're looking at is known to be A, B, or C, so that if there is a color issue, that it still can be delineated well.
So
I have another comment.
go ahead, Anna.
Oh, okay. I think if we're voting on this, and we're voting on it as a recommendation to city council, is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's going to go to Plan Commission first because it should probably be seen by both, and then both of the recommendations from this commission and Plan Commission would go to City Council.
Okay, so I serve on that other commission too. So I personally would prefer to see on the permitted uses, number 2 and number 3 into the special exception category. If we're going to have a conversation about, things that potentially pollute the groundwater, salt and leaks from hydrocarbon and petroleum products, even if they're above ground, I think need a discussion.
Okay. I think that's appropriate. And if whoever makes a motion wants to include that, I will make sure that that's relayed appropriately.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand the change.
So basically these right here, she's saying rather than saying it's just outright permitted in C, to put it down into special exceptions to say it can be permitted, but we're going to put some conditions on it.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So does that mean you make the motion to approve this, Anna?
Yes, with moving number 2 and 3 under the permitted uses into special exceptions. So yes.
Or further discussion about that change?
There was a chat from Ray saying he had additional questions, but is having trouble with his internet.
Oh, Ray, I think we can hear you now on your computer. Maybe not. Did you try *6 on your phone to see if that unmutes your phone? Let me see.
Am I unmuted?
Yep, you are.
Okay. I've got a lot of questions on this. I wasn't aware of the whole process until today. It's been going on for a while. I do have quite a few questions, and the black and white map didn't really give nearly as much information as your color ones. The color ones are great, but I can't digest all of that this rapidly to make a vote and a recommendation.
So Ray, do I understand that you have some additional questions you want to ask?
I have questions on the whole process, and is there a rush for us to make a recommendation to approve this today and recommend it to the Plan Commission and the City Council? What's our timetable, I guess, is my first question.
Well, there isn't a huge rush from my perspective. We do have a current zoning ordinance, groundwater wellhead protection zoning ordinance in place. And like I said, there was 3 years worth of meetings on the county side that brought us to today for the first one. So if there's some things that you want to talk about offline just to get some details straightened out, I don't have any issue with that. It would go through another cycle of meetings because Plan Commission meets off cycle with this commission. So I'd say that it'd probably come back here if you wanted it to next month, and then the next Plan Commission after that, and then the next council after that would be the process if it didn't get action today.
And that would be, I guess that would be my preference too. to ask some questions and be sure I can be behind it 100%.
Sure.
So then I'm assuming what you're recommending is that we just table the agenda item for this month. You'll call Joel, or Joel will contact you about meeting with him to answer those questions. And then Joel can determine whether the answers to those questions need to be provided to this commission next month, when we would try to adopt it at that time.
If that's acceptable, that's what I'd like.
Is everybody else okay with that? I don't hear any opposition, so we'll just table the agenda item for this meeting, and we'll expect to see it back with whatever additional information you feel is appropriate, if any, next month, Joel.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks.
Let's go on to the water supply and distribution report.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nothing really to add, besides we started we did our first lead service replacement last week, Friday, for customer, and tomorrow Joel and I have a public information meeting at noon and at 6 for the rest of the residents. Anybody wants to chime in can listen to what we have to say and what we're going to be practically doing. So that starts tomorrow. Follow up with hopefully a handful of replacements in the next couple of weeks prior to our next meeting. So kind of some exciting stuff for us, but that's all I really had to add.
Ray, I think that ever since you got connected, we're having some loud TikTok noise in the background. So I'm going to ask Joel to mute you. You'll still be able to hear us, but there we go.
I think the same thing will work to unmute if you need to weigh in as the *6 or whatever worked last time.
Okay. Anything else, Eric?
Not for me.
All right. Then on to the sewage department, Chris.
Gotta remember to unmute myself before I start talking. All right, the wastewater plant met all of our permit requirements for the month of April. We were able to produce about 40% of our electricity and about 70% of our own heat on site. We did have one major snafu. We did have a fan for our exhaust fan for our new dryer broke, so we had to order a new one. That's a pretty expensive fan, so you'll see that on, I believe, next month's billing. We do have the parts on site, and we're going to work on repairing that this weekend. Hopefully next week we'll be able to fire the dryer back up. Beyond that, that's about all I have for you today.
Thank you very much. Construction and maintenance report, Craig.
Good afternoon, everybody. Tonight we start our annual flushing of our hydrants. It'll run from 9 o'clock this evening till Thursday, Friday morning, roughly about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Also, our big north side construction project started today with some asphalt removal, and they're going to start hooking up temporary water, and we'll start the construction of the replacing of the mains and that kind of stuff. Looks like right now starting Wednesday. So that's all I have for right now.
Very good. Joel, you want to finish up with items 8 and 9?
You bet. So on the community area network report, what we have going there is that we are moving forward with getting a leased fiber option to Kennedy in Junction City, and Plover has shown some more interest in some of their facilities in the village to connect up now that the village hall itself is connected to the community area network. So that's that. And on the director's report, what I wanted to just mention is that it was hoped for this month that the standing committees would go back to at least a mixed meeting presence. So those that wanted to attend in person could, and those that wanted to attend by Zoom could do that. It didn't work out that way with a few glitches in technology, is my understanding. But as of right now, I was going to see if you guys wanted to do the same for next month and hold the option to be in person and virtual, or if you want to continue going this way, or what you'd like to do so I can be prepared.
I prefer to it be an option to have everybody do whatever they're comfortable with.
Okay.
Anybody else? Kind of funny you should bring, go ahead,
doing
Anna.
it by Zoom right now.
Please repeat that.
I'm fine doing this by Zoom for a couple more months.
I was thinking today that I was gonna call you up and see if I could come over there and just you and I be in the room as kind of a test, but
Yeah,
we'll talk more about that between now and the next meeting.
you bet. I mean, late last week, I was going to send out a message saying that the room will be open for anybody who wants to come in person, but then we got an email that the committees tonight aren't going to be in person. So I didn't do that. But I think by next month, we'll be ready to just do a slightly different version of this. And like you said, Anna, totally cool either way. Those that want to come in and spread out a little bit in here can, and those that want to attend by Zoom, it's all legit. So I'll send out an email well ahead of time. Paul and I can talk a little bit ahead of time too.
Ray just sent out a message saying that he would prefer in person, so. All right, any other questions or any other comments for Joel? If not, a meeting to adjourn is in order.
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
I
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. On to the airport.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.